The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz here along with Winnebago County Sheriff Michael Brooks, and Mike is an old friend and a frequent guest, and we're always happy to have you here.
Well, thank you for inviting me again. I always enjoy getting an opportunity to talk about the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about a few things in this half hour, and then later in the half hour, or later in the hour rather, we're going to be joined by a couple of folks from United Way, talking about their campaign drive that they have going on right now. But so I got you for this 30 minutes,
Okay.
and one of the things we were going to talk about was your retirement is coming up soon, and
Right.
you were going to be making an announcement about that. You're not quite at that point yet, though. So
No, I'm not. I haven't. I'm still evaluating whether I will finish the term or not. There are several factors that I need to get answers on before I make that decision. But this term ends January 2nd of 2011. So no matter what, that will be my finish date, if not sooner.
And you've promised me the first exclusive on that, so
Yes,
I
I
thank you
will.
very much
Yeah,
for
yes,
that.
yes,
So,
yes.
okay, well let's talk about. I mean, it's budget time, and so maybe that's a good place for us to start. What is the Sheriff's Department part of the county budget look like?
Well, as usual, we are roughly 11 to 12% of the county budget. But because we don't generate the revenues that like the Highway Department does or the Parks Department, we end up being about 33% of the total budget. This year we're going to be just over $20 million in total expenses with about $2.7 million in revenues. So we are going to end up with about a 5.5% increase in our budget from last year. The budget that I submitted, for those that don't know, I submit a budget to the county exec. Then the county exec takes a look at it, makes adjustments, or we talk about it and he makes adjustments, and that's the final one presented to the county board. The budget that I presented to the county exec would have had us at about 5.5%, but he needed to make up some monies from other areas and has now reduced the labor by about $108,000. So we are coming in a little bit lower. Prior to that, when I talked to the county exec, I said, look, my budget is up $920,000, but $980,000 of those dollars are strictly from labor, overtime, and from fringe benefits. And my point is that in the other three categories that I have control over, we've done a lot of things over the years, and once again this year by partnering with Outagamie County for food service, we've done a lot of things to streamline our budget. And so I think that, we continue to be very fiscally responsible, but, once again, wages will drive the Sheriff's Office expenses.
They always do.
Yes, they do.
Wages and benefits,
Yeah.
no matter where you go, that's the biggest portion of someone's
Right,
budget, really.
right.
So. Now, you mentioned that you partner with Outagamie County for food services. Is this the first time around that you've been doing that?
2010 will be the first time that we have done that. I spoke to Sheriff Gehring about around Christmas time last year, and we were talking about the different things that we're looking at doing in the regional jail, and we brought up the fact that, maybe there might be some savings in both of us bidding out for food at the same time. And as a result of that, we're going from, right now we were paying, it's a sliding scale depending on the number of inmates in the jail on a daily basis, but we're paying right now anywhere from $1.18 per meal to $1.21. We're going to go down to less than $1 a meal with a maximum of $1.09 a meal by partnering together. We really realized some tremendous savings. And Outagamie, who was paying about 25 cents a meal more than us, is going to even see more savings. But it's another example of combining purchasing power in order to save the taxpayers money.
Sure. Well, and you know, that's the name of the game. I know that there's been talk about a regionalization of the jails between Outagamie, Winnebago, and Calumet counties.
Right.
Now, Outagamie begged out of the, they opted out of the study, of course, on what this was all going to be like. But is there still some conversation going on?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, and unfortunately, I think there's a misunderstanding as to Outagamie County's position. They went in mid-year to ask for the money for the study, and as you know, that requires a 3/4 vote in order to get that. They were not able to get a 3/4 vote. If this had been a simple majority vote, they would have had the money. Sheriff Gehring has put the money back into his budget for 2010, and we're hoping that they will see that while both Brad and I have been very aggressive in alternatives, but not every inmate is suitable for alternatives, and we need to recognize that the answer is not only alternatives and finding alternatives that work, but also in recognizing that you will still have a need for more beds. So we need to find a way to do that saves us money, and when I say us, I'm talking about me as a taxpayer. And
Sure.
So I'm hoping that it passes his budget so that we can continue the talks.
Okay. A couple weeks back, I had on County Executive Mark Harris, and you know, we were touching on this just a little bit. And he was saying sort of what he envisioned, and I'm trying to remember back now, it seems like so long ago, and it really wasn't, but I believe that he said that what he sort of thought might end up happening is that because of the way the state laws are and so forth, that there would probably be, each county would retain their individual jails, but there might be one facility housed in one of the 3 counties that would be for, I'll call it overflow inmates, if you will. Is that kind of where you're thinking this might be going, or is it too early to really know?
Well, there's I think the county exec is pretty close to being right on as to what we would at least start out with if we're willing to go forward, and that would be a recognition that it would be more of a housing transfer like we do with state inmates or with Dane County inmates, et cetera, versus a regional facility. And part of that is because we would need to take a look at whether or not we can enter into a written agreement that would bind the sheriffs enough so that one of them can't opt out all of a sudden and leave his county in a lurch. And unfortunately, you know, that could happen. You know, my successor or Brad's successor or Jerry Poggle from Calumet County, they could hop out after we go forward with this, and you know, it could create some problems. I'm very confident that the election process would prevent that from happening because we need to find ways to save money. Regionalization, we have shown time after time after time, has helped us save money. And I would hope that anybody that takes my place or any of the other 2 sheriff's places would go along with that. Now, let me take it a step further. There are ways to do this, we believe, with a written contract that would bind the counties into it so that no matter what the sheriff does, it would make it very difficult actually for him to make that option, or to take away the option of housing another county. What we're looking at doing though, and here's always the problem with jails, this is the difference between a jail and the landfill sites. You know, it's very easy for them to combine in 3 counties to do the landfills. What they don't have that a jail has is we have people that are still going to court. So if we house them away, we have to bring them back. You don't do that with garbage, thank goodness. It goes and it stays. But you know, we have to bring them back for court, and so because of that, there's huge transportation costs. As a matter of fact, prior to building this facility, we were housing anywhere from 50 to 60 inmates over at Oshkosh-Sheriff County, and every single day we were making the trek over and back, and that requires labor, that requires gas. It was along with the per diem you're paying. It was very, very expensive. But both of us, or actually all three of us now, are at the point where we have enough sentenced prisoners who don't go to court that we would start being able to use, or we would be able to start using a facility where we wouldn't have those transportation costs.
Sure.
That's what makes this to me, makes it a very attractive proposal.
Now, you know, down the road, I know that a lot of the sheriff's departments, you guys are using it, Allegheny County does. I'm not that familiar with, you know, some of the other counties, but, you know, making appearances by video. Is there a way to, you know, sort of regionalize or hook up those cameras between all the different counties so that at some point down the road, a regional jail might be a little bit more prudent from a financial standpoint?
Well, first of all, if you don't have the transportation issues with sentenced prisoners, then that video conferencing isn't a factor. But to use your question, yeah, definitely. As a matter of fact, that technology exists today.
We're not hooked up with it yet, though, right?
Well, we have ours hooked up, and we are just really starting to use it the way we had hoped to use it, by preventing us or keeping us from having to pick up prisoners in Prairie du Chien at the state institution there, or up by Wausau at the prison at Stanley, actually, not Wausau, or even at Waupun. And just let me give you an example of what it takes to bring one prisoner back from Waupun. 2 officers. Let's say his court appearance is at 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, we know that's a minimum 45-minute drive down there. So you would think, well, we'll leave at 8:15. Well, you can't, because you don't know how quickly you're going to get in there. You don't know if you're going to run into traffic. So we start sending people at 6:45 in the morning. They get down there, you know, close to 8 o'clock. They get down there close to 7:30. They may have to wait a half hour to pick up a prisoner. Then they bring them back. And if they leave at 6:45, they're usually just getting back to court in time. And we don't want that either. So, you know, the bare minimum is we're going to leave at 6:45. We now have a court appearance that normally for these court appearances, you know, lasts 15 minutes to an hour and a half. Those 2 officers still have to stay there. They can't go anywhere. Then when they're done, they have to take them back. So we now have another 45-minute or so drive back. And now we have to wait to get back in, because you know, you can't just drop them off. You have to check them back in, and there's a line for coming and going, and then they drive back. We normally see those officers back and available for another call somewhere around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we're looking at you know, roughly an hour of overtime and another 5 hours of regular work time for a proceeding, picking up a prisoner at Waupun. Now, as far as video conferencing, one of the things that is great about this country, but also creates a bit of a problem with the video conferencing, is that we require that the inmate or the defendant has the opportunity to face his accuser. So in any adversarial type situation, we have to have that inmate in court. Okay, so we have to pick them up. But there's a lot of status cases, or hearings, I should say, that are only 15, 20 minutes or a half hour long, that we're ending up picking up that inmate or that defendant from another institution and bringing them back when we could do it in video conferencing. And that's what we're gearing to do right now. All the courts have video conferencing available. Everything is on an IP address. A lot of the sheriff's offices are now doing it. And I would hope, and I don't picture it happening during my tenure, but I would hope that down the line, it would even prevent us from having to pick somebody up on a warrant. That if let's say, for example, Washington County picks up one of our people on a warrant, if you could video conference him to the court commissioner, and then he could go right from there. Those are the types of things that if you know, down the line, if the sheriffs and the courts and the state institutions work together, can have some real great savings. Like I said, it's not going to happen in the next year and 2 months.
Right.
But it's something I think is down the line.
Yeah. Mike, when you say, you know, face their accuser, do you mean at every step of the judicial process, or just when it comes time to state a plea or have a jury trial or be sentenced? Or
Well, let's say there's a motions hearing on a confession. In essence, it's an adversarial hearing because they're taking testimony against his interests that relate to the officers taking the confession. And I'm not an attorney, so I know there's going to be attorneys out there saying, well, Mike, that's not totally right. But in essence, it's facing your accuser.
Right.
If there's a motions hearing, that will have an impact on what can be brought into evidence, what can't be. If you're having obviously at a jury trial, at the voir dire to pick a jury, at sentencing, et cetera. Those are all adversarial, and I'm sure I'm leaving some out. But in each of those cases, you have that right to be present to face your accuser or at an adversarial hearing. Status ones, that's not the case, and it would be nice if we could start using that even more for those.
It's too bad, the DAs can't be on video conferencing as well, and they could still be facing each other, but not necessarily in the same room. Cut down on transportation costs, cut down on some security, probably.
Sure. Yeah, security is a big issue for some of these higher profile cases, and it all comes with an expense. I'm just traditional enough though, and I think there's some expense to the rights that we have that I'm not willing to give up. As a taxpayer, I'm willing to pay.
Okay,
So.
all right. Speaking of paying, let's go back to the budget. We got off on this really
Yeah.
interesting tangent
Yeah,
here,
sure.
but so the budget, you're coming in a little bit higher,
Yes.
and some of that is because of overtime.
Right.
That really you can't control for
That's
some of
right.
the very reasons that we just heard.
Sure.
Any staff layoffs or terminations because of this?
No, we are actually asking for 2 staff members, and I should explain why we are. We laid off a significant number of people back in 2005 when we closed the Huber Center, and then some more the following year. In essence, my overtime budget nearly doubled, and actually did double. And so what I've been doing over the last couple of years is saying, okay, is there any situations where I could hire somebody where I could get near hour for hour regular time versus overtime, meaning hire somebody or do part-time positions. So last year, I demonstrated that we needed to add to patrol and to dispatch because of the overtime. We also asked for 4 part-time individuals to work in corrections, and it's taken us quite a while to do the testing process and get them trained, and we're just now starting to realize some of the savings from them. And we'll hope to see even more next year. And the rationale behind it is by the time we pay somebody overtime, that's 150% of their wages, and then we pay 30% in fringe benefits, we're paying 180%. When we pay somebody straight pay, we're paying 150%. So it's cheaper to have those hours filled at regular time, and that's how that part-time works. Also, fulfilling the hour for our positions in both in patrol and in the dispatch center last year. We're still seeing a tremendous amount of overtime in our dispatchers, and some of it is it's always related somehow to contractual or staffing needs. And so I say that not to bash them, but it's just the way it is. And so we once again looked at it and said, okay, we can do hour for hour in there, and here's how we'll slot them into the schedule, and we'll do that savings. Basically, the savings on there with fringe benefits is about $60,000. So you add to that the fact that right now we're paying a full-time detective $28 an hour without any fringe benefits to do data storage of evidence like the video cameras from the squad cars, the digital videos that we do on interrogations and interviews, along with maintaining an evidence room. Larger agencies recognize that it's cheaper to have a civilian do that than it is to have an officer. We were able to come up with a grant that will pay us 100% of the fringe and the regular pay for 2 years. So I've asked for that position, recognizing that probably what's going to be asked of me is that, okay, we'll give it to you for 2 years, but you're going to need, well, I won't have to, but my successor will have to justify that need down the line, which is a very valid request if that's what happens. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you, this time out, we're finding our experience over the last 4 years is you can only cut so much without running up your overtime, and then you have to start looking at how can you reduce the overtime.
Sure.
And unfortunately, If you have to have X amount of people working in order to do the job, and you have to start filling with overtime, it then becomes more practical to hire full-time. So it's laying off doesn't always save money. Sometimes adding people back does.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
We're down to like 10 minutes.
Oh,
and I
I'm
wanna-
sorry.
No, that's not your fault at all.
Okay.
It's just the clock is going faster
Yeah.
than we are. Want to touch on a couple of things here. Now, you recently got a grant of $30,000 that you're using for drunk driving enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also got a grant, let me see here, I don't see right offhand how much this was, but I'm sure you know, to allow you guys to buy some equipment to help out the SWAT team.
That's correct.
Can we talk just a little bit about that first and what that one is, and then we'll go to the drunk driving one?
Sure. The SWAT team actually is a grant we got from Homeland Security. And the reason we got the grant is that a few years back, excuse me, a few years back, Homeland Security at the state level started saying, we need to develop regional teams, and not just in SWAT, but in other areas also. And I stepped up very quickly for that. And the reason I stepped up quickly was twofold. First of all, I believe that the SWAT team at the Sheriff's Office is a very excellent SWAT team, and recognize that we would get training and equipment that would save the taxpayers of Winnebago County a significant amount of money and give them a excellent team. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about the other ones, but that's why I stepped up and said we'd be glad to be a regional team. We got the Bearcat as a result of that. We didn't pay a penny out of that. But the money we got this time is for an eyeball. And basically what it is, when the SWAT team is clearing a house, when they're going in and going room by room, it's a round piece of equipment with a camera in it that has a gyroscope, so it always sits back up the way it's supposed to, that you can throw into the room ahead of you to see what's in the room. And it's an officer safety type issue. The state said you have a regional team, so we're going to give you this grant. So that's why we ended up with that.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
And then the one for stepping up enforcement of drunken driving, which, boy, do we need it.
Yes,
Boy,
yes,
do we need it.
Yeah. And as we were talking earlier, I got to give credit to the guy that has said this to me on several occasions. But our coroner Barry Busby talks about the carnage occurring on the highways, and he's absolutely right. We need to work. I think we need to work very hard on recognizing two things. We need strict enforcement of the OWI laws, but I also think that we need to recognize that locking people up isn't the only way of dealing with it. And it's programs like Judge Wolt in our Safe Streets put together the pilot program for repeat offenders. We also need those in place too. We need to change the culture, and the only way we're going to change the culture is by recognizing that and implementing programs like the Safe Streets. It's sad today, and of course now this will view it'll be more than a week ago that there was a conviction of a young man a sentencing of a young man who killed a 14-year-old girl and greatly harmed her mother up on Highway 45 near Double G. We're seeing that all too often. We can't allow that to happen. Whether it's a deterrent or not, I'm not going to say that. What I will say, though, is that you need to be held accountable for your actions. And those individuals that want to help themselves or do something about it, we need to extend a hand to help them, to kill the alcoholism or to help them beat the alcoholism that's causing some of these problems.
Yeah. Well, and the case that you just referred to, I mean, I was shocked that the young man only got 5 years. I realized he got, I think it was 10 years extended supervision after his 5-year sentence. But when you have the potential to be sentenced to 30 years and you come away with 5 for taking a life, that just seems like it's nothing, really.
Well, and I wasn't there at the sentencing, so I didn't hear what the judge said were his mitigating circumstances. But I can tell you that if I was mom and dad, I would be hurt and angry at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's easy to be a judge, but what I'm saying is I understand, and all too often, I've had to deal with family members who have lost a loved one, and I can understand how they feel. But I'll say this again: I really don't care in some situations whether it's a deterrent or not. You need to be held accountable for what you did. and for taking somebody's life, I guess if I were the parents, I would feel that he didn't get enough time.
Yeah, well, we've got to step up. I realize that they just recently passed a law that does kind of step things up a little bit, but I think the general feeling among the public is that it's too little too late, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, and then you look at, you know, Representative Wood or Woods, I can never remember if it's Wood or Woods,
Yeah.
but, you know, 3 times arrested for drunk driving in the last year alone. The most recent, the day before we're taping this show, which
Right.
we're taping this on the 22nd of October. And, you know, now I saw just before I came over here tonight that Governor Doyle's calling for his resignation. You know, that's the least of what should happen to
Right,
him. But,
right.
you know, I mean, here you've got someone who's making laws, expecting people to uphold the laws, and he's simply not doing his part either.
Right.
We got to get tougher on these people.
Well, and you know, and there's a case where I have to believe that the gentleman has alcohol, or he's probably an alcoholic. And I don't mean to say that without any evidence other than obviously alcohol's driving his life. And I'm sure that there have been offers to help him in other areas. But whatever the case may be, he needs to be held accountable now, and he needs to step down. I agree with the governor. Not a lot of things I agree with Governor Doyle, but that's one. He needs to step down. And I do know from talking to other representatives that they have talked to him, trying to help him too. But he needs to be held accountable.
Yeah.
He's not listening. He's not trying to do anything about his problem, and therefore, you know, whether it's a deterrent or not, it becomes a punishment. He needs to be held accountable.
Yeah. Well, and you've got 2 different, I think, personality types at work in these cases. You know, there's a case where if he does have a drinking problem, that problem needs to be addressed. And
That's
then
right.
you've got the binge drinkers who just go out, tie one on because they are in a party-going mode, and they just throw all caution to the wind and
Sure.
they don't care.
Yep.
You know, they may not necessarily have an alcoholic problem, but I mean, nonetheless, it's creating, you
Sure.
know, death
Yeah.
and injury that
Yeah.
doesn't need to be.
Well, and you know, in the last, I've been, as of tomorrow, I've been in law enforcement 37 years. And-
Congratulations.
yes, thank you. And I have seen a tremendous change. When I first came on, it was a fine, and you walked out the door. You didn't lose your driver's license or anything like that. And I think Wisconsin, you know, I think people that live here, I think we have a different attitude towards drinking than some other places. And that's what I talk about. We need to change the culture. As you said, you know, both situations that you talk about need to be addressed. You know, binge drinking and then getting behind the wheel of a car is a recipe for disaster. The alcoholic getting behind the wheel of a car is a recipe for disaster. But we need to not only hold people accountable, we not only need to punish them, but we need to start doing intervention as early as possible. And I hate to keep referring back to the pilot program that Safe Streets lobbied for, but there's a classic example of saying, you know, you got caught and you got caught again. Now we need to be taking serious actions with you. If I could just go back to the law, my problem with the new law is that it's not a crime unless there's a 16-year-old in the car. We're only one of 2 states that don't make it a crime the first time out.
Yeah.
And you know, like many things, as I've gotten older, my views have changed. But you know, it's very clear that we need to address this issue and we need to be tough on it. Also understanding that we need to offer help or programs to help somebody kick his addiction.
Okay, all right, excellent. Mike, our time's up, but thank you so much for being here. We
It's always a
appreciate it.
pleasure. Always a pleasure to be
For
here.
me as well.
Okay.
And we'll look forward to your announcement, and we'll have you back to do that.
Okay,
So
sounds
just
good.
sit tight. We're going to
Okay.
take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by some folks talking to us about United Way and their efforts. We'll be right back.
Dear Mom and Dad, well, I finally have some time off, so I'm writing to tell you that I'm doing well. We have good days and bad days over here. We try to remember the good ones and get through the bad ones. Mostly we have each other, and that's what keeps us going. And Mom, since you asked, if anyone wants to help, just tell them to contact the USO. You can't believe how much they do for us. With love, your son, Michael.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
We were in an emergency situation. We don't have extra. We have a little bit of water and a little bit of food. A meeting place, no.
No.
I don't think we have a first aid kit.
We have tuna fish, we have
Right.
beans, we have canned tomatoes,
True.
you know.
That's true, but that's really not survival food. Tomato paste.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I've seen this in this one.
All right, welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. We're joined now by Sue Panek from the United Way here in the Oshkosh area, and Sean Fitzgerald. Sean is a magazine publisher, but you're connected with United Way, correct?
Yeah, I've been a volunteer with the campaign for the last 5 years, and
Okay.
this year I'm serving as the chairperson for it.
Oh, excellent, excellent. How did you come to get involved with United Way?
Well, when I first came to Oshkosh, I was involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters, which is a United Way agency. I was a Big Brother for a handful of years, became involved on their board for Big Brothers Big Sisters back when it was a separate entity in Oshkosh, helped with the merger between the Oshkosh and the Fox Valley organization, and then a few years later got involved with United Way through the campaign. So I've kind of seen both sides of the agency and their needs for funding, as well as the United Way and the funding that they provide to those agencies in the community.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the funding, because that was the real premise for why I had called you folks to begin with. You know, anyone who's driven around town lately has seen the thermometer type billboards, if you will, because you've got your fundraising campaign drive underway right now, and we're watching those totals creep up a little bit.
It crept up a little today.
Yes, good. That's good. So, what is the goal that you're looking to meet, and where are you at as of October 22nd? Then.
I'm going to let Sean talk about the goal.
Okay.
And
all right.
because he was very instrumental in getting that goal, because it's one of the highest we've ever had.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's the highest that Oshkosh has ever set for itself, and that's really a reflection of the increased need that's in the community. All the home foreclosures, all of the layoffs at area companies, the furloughs and pay cuts that people are being asked to take. The agencies that are serviced by United Way and the United Way programs themselves are seeing the highest demand they've ever seen in the community, and there's some very specific details that we can go into later perhaps about some of the agencies. But as a result, this year we set a goal of $1.31 million. Okay. And that tops the goal that we've had in the community the past number of years. And it's a goal that we've built a strategy towards achieving, and we're excited about being able to, Oshkosh coming together to be able to deliver this need for the agencies in the community.
How much higher is it than in the past?
The past few years, about the last 5 or 6 years now, we've had $1,075,000.
Okay.
So it's, in that regard, it's close to $250,000 more, about $200,000 more.
Absolutely.
And the highest we ever raised was $1,250,000.
Okay.
And that was around the year of 9/11. So
Okay. All right. And so, where are you at as of today?
we're at just over 20%.
Okay.
So we're feeling really good about that. We raised about $180,000 with our pace setter companies, and those are the companies that run an early campaign, usually in the month of August, so that when we have our kickoff, we have some dollars to report already.
Okay.
And so, now is the time that all the materials are out to all the companies, and it comes in slowly. We're getting those small gifts in first. We're getting, we've got our mail out to our generous leadership donors, those people that give $500 and more, and some of our retirees. Who give very generously to the United Way campaign. And all of those start coming in now, and then when we do the big push with the companies the rest of this month and in the month of November and some in December, we'll find out more.
So pace setter companies, is that different than working with regular, other types of employers in the area where maybe they do something, payroll deduction wise with their employees to donate? Are they two different things?
It's the same kind of a campaign.
Okay.
The pace setters are a targeted group of companies that we approach in July and August, and they run their campaigns throughout the month of August and into early September. They finish off by the time of our annual campaign kickoff, and they really provide that boost in momentum so that we come out of the gates at the campaign kickoff with a good number to report. A lot of those companies continue to do some small fundraisers throughout the course of the campaign, but they essentially are running the same kind of campaign as the rest of employers in town, and that is soliciting pledges from employees that generally come out of a payroll deduction, and as well as a contribution from the company itself.
Okay.
We did have a couple of interesting things happen, though. Hofmaster decided that they wanted to be part pace setter and part traditional. So they ran an early pace setter fundraiser for us at Buffalo Wild Wings, where they had their 12 of their employees agree to eat 12 of the hottest wings that Buffalo Wild Wings has in under 6 minutes. Get this, under 6 minutes.
Oh, that's worse, yeah.
And
God love those people.
I know, and 12 of these individuals, these wonderful individuals, did this over at the Buffalo Wild Wings store on Kohler there, and actually got pledges from their employees. So I would say, Cheryl, if I eat them, would you give me $10? And yeah, if you'll eat them, I'll give you $10. And so they raised money that way. Well, not only did they eat them in under 6 minutes, the gentleman that ate them in less than a minute, 7 seconds.
Minute 7 seconds, and also raised the most money. I think he raised $1,300 himself out of everyone.
Wow.
They raised
Does some of that
48
money go to buy him Tums or something?
What?
I would hope so.
Because boy, I can just already feel the indigestion.
I know, but from that event, they raised $4,800.
Amazing.
And now
something
they're running
so simple.
Yeah.
Something so
But
simple.
fun. And
Yeah.
you should have seen the number of employees that came to watch this. And I mean, they had signs, they made T-shirts up, they had a blast. And that's the other thing that United Way can really do. It can kind of be a team building exercise in your company as well, because people come together and work on
Sure,
some.
sure.
It's really a good cause because we fund so many programs.
Yeah, and we want to touch on those too. Now, how long does your campaign go?
Well, it's held in the fall. We typically have wrapped it up by Thanksgiving every year, and that's what we shoot for as far as our strategy and our timeline.
Well, I would say more like December 31st.
December 31st.
Okay.
Yeah, in
Year's
recent
end.
years, we've had a couple of companies that for whatever reason they're not able to conduct their employee campaigns until late November, early December, and so we're seeing more and more of those campaigns go until into the holiday season, and we've been wrapping things up right around December 31st.
Sure, but of course, even though it's wrapping up around December 31st, contributions are always welcome and in any amount. And you can go to www.oshkosshunitedway.org, and there's all kinds of information there about what our local United Way does, how you could donate. It's a tremendous opportunity, so I'd encourage you to do that. So let's talk about the various things that United Way does, the agencies that you service and that kind of thing.
As Sean already said, that one of the programs that we were servicing and we continue to service is the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And so and they actually have two programs. One's a school-based program, one's a community-based program. And I'm not going to go through all 48 of the programs, but the programs of the American Red Cross, the programs of the Salvation Army. There are about 19 agencies that we currently fund programs for. And those programs have to come in to meet with volunteers. And so when people say, well, once you've raised the money, then what do you do with it? Well, those agencies come in and meet with us, and I mean volunteers, not just staff, and do a presentation for them. Let us know, what do they plan to do? How do they plan to measure the effectiveness of what they do and how much it's going to cost? Okay. And then they tell us what they've done the previous year and how they measured the effectiveness. And then those volunteers make a decision as to how much that each of those programs will get.
Okay.
And so last year it was just under $1 million that was actually allocated to all those programs. And then United Way also has some of the programs, and I gave you kind of a list earlier just to say, are these kinds of things you want us to talk about? And we just did one last week, and it was the Money Smart week. We partnered with UW Extension and the Oshkosh Public Library, who really took the lead on the project, and FISC, which is our Financial Credit Counseling Agency, which is a program of United Way. And the four of us put together more than 50 workshops on financial literacy, everything from basic investing, how do I budget, one on coupons. We did one on help, my spouse is dead, my spouse is dying. What do you do? What should you do before that happens? So that you have those conversations with your family. And then just basic things on, I need a job, how do I write a resume, how do I network, what about the interview? Many people have lost jobs, haven't interviewed for years.
Yeah.
And so we offered those kinds of workshops. So that was the Money Smart Week that we had, and we had over 500 people participate in that. We were excited for the first year. Coming up in January, we'll have our tax program, the VITA tax program, which is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. And that's a program of the IRS. We'll actually provide free tax preparation and file them online for low-income families. People that make less than $45,000 can come in and get the service free. We have trained volunteers. They're all trained by the IRS and certified by the IRS to do the taxes. And last year, was our first year. We served about 107 people. We filed actually 84 separate returns.
Wow.
And I thought that was pretty good, yeah. But the best part is we actually saved them almost $15,500, just under $15,500 in tax prep fees that if they had gone someplace else to have it done, they would have paid for.
Yeah, wow, amazing.
And we got their tax returns within a week to 10 days for the federal and less than a week for the state because we did it all online. Now this year we're going to try to educate people as to don't let the IRS be your savings account and take more out of your check now so that you have it to spend now as opposed to using the IRS as your savings account and then spending it in a lump sum. So that people can help pay for that utility bill and help pay for the mortgage and pay for the groceries.
Yeah, because food pantries are taxed too.
Well, that's another one of our programs.
Okay, let's touch on that a little.
Yeah, in fact, when we talk, when our campaign volunteers go out into the community talking about the various programs that are funded by United Way, the food pantry is one that jumps out. It's been a more visible program in the community lately, and every month this year so far, the Oshkosh Community Food Pantry has had a record month for demand. In fact, in August, they had served over 1,800 families in the community, and demand was increased. I think it was about 275% from the August in 2008. And, I know Steve at the food pantry had said he doesn't know where the ceiling is at this point because the demand just continues to increase.
Yeah.
And luckily, donations to the pantry, as far as food and actual monetary donations, have been good. And United Way coordinates a hunger task force in the community where we bring all the food pantries together. And we've been doing this for about 8 years. Before, the pantries never really talked with one another. And so we brought them all together for, number one, let's get to know each other, find out what your needs are, find out what you're doing. And what we found out as a result of that is that the pantry that was at the Trinity Episcopal Church was going to be closing because the volunteers were going to retire and they really didn't have anybody in place to replace them. And so with the Community Foundation and putting up some money, they hired a part-time coordinator, and then United Way Community Foundation and some other local people in our community came together and said, how could we form a community pantry? And that's how that really came about. And now that we've got that community pantry, we have, and they've partnered with St. Vincent de Paul at that location. It's really, people can go to use that pantry and have a lot of dignity when they go there, because it's not easy to have to ask for that kind of help.
No.
And so they go in there based on the size of their family. They get a certain number of points. They are able to shop for the kinds of food that they're going to eat. Steve does a great job buying when they go to Second Harvest and they buy food really reasonably. I think it's like 19 or 20 cents a pound. So they have frozen chicken, they have frozen beef, food that normally they would not have gotten before because they just didn't have the freezer capacity.
Quality type food.
Quality
too,
food, yeah.
You know.
And the Shared Harvest program with the Southwest Rotary Club, this year they have had so many fruits and vegetables that, and those are kind of free points. I always kind of say it's like Weight Watchers. The vegetables are free points because you can eat as many as you want. And in this case, you can take almost as many as you want. And they encourage families to take those vegetables as opposed to eating just the canned vegetables or pork and beans.
Yeah. You know, something just occurred to me. Because of the various agencies and programs that you all at the United Way help, someone can make a donation, and it can just be a general type donation that you all decide where it's best applied. Or if they have some special pet program, can they also make a donation and say, you know, I'd like this earmarked specifically for such and such?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that
and a number
possible?
of people have done that in the past.
Okay.
If they have a special connection or volunteer with the Christine Ann Center, for example, or the Boys and Girls Club, they can write down their pledge form that they'd like to have that allocation go towards that, and then that desire is respected by our allocations committee.
And the same thing true, to take it one step further, if a person lives someplace else but only works in Oshkosh, and there's a United Way in their community, they can, like in Berlin, they could write that they want theirs to go to the Berlin United Way or to the Fox Cities or Fond du Lac or Ripon, and we'll honor that designation as well. So just because somebody works here doesn't mean their gift has to stay here.
Okay. to know.
And so we're able to share that. And that's why the UPS campaign is so interesting, because those people come kind of from all over. And because UPS is such a large company and such a strong donor to United Way across the country, they actually have developed their own system, and it's based on the person's zip code as to where the gift goes, unless those employees want it to go someplace else. So if the person's zip code is 54901 through 4, then it would come to the Oshkosh area.
Yeah.
Although otherwise it would go to Neenah or wherever the other communities might be. And so we transfer money back and forth among among United Way communities a lot. So we get money coming in, money goes out.
Okay, just like my bank account.
Exactly.
Yeah, very similar.
Let's talk about you know, strategies for meeting the goal, because this is a very ambitious goal.
Yeah.
What, other than some of the things we talked about, Sean, what are some of the strategies that you all use to help get you to that point?
Well, you know, not only is it an ambitious goal, but the thing at the top of everyone's mind right now is the economy, and a number of organizations that conduct fundraisers are finding that it's a bit more challenging in this climate to raise the funds that perhaps they've been used to in the past. And we've already seen some challenges from, you know, Sue had mentioned we received corporate gifts, we received gifts from employees, we received gifts from our leadership group. Those larger donors in the community. We're already seeing that corporations have had to cut back on the size of their gifts in some cases. But what we've ventured to do is to really make an extra push to ask employer groups to be able to increase the participation among their employees who've given in the past. From, I guess, last year's total, we had a total of 13% of all of the employees in Oshkosh that work at companies that conduct a United Way campaign had given to the campaign. And that's a number that's much lower than in other communities our size across Wisconsin, and a number that we believe we can increase. If we can increase that by even 10%, we can raise an average of $375,000. That's based on the average per person gift in past years. And it's really you know, with the payroll deduction, it's as easy as having $5 a week come out of, or $5 a paycheck come off of your payroll that you receive. And you know, over the course of a year, that adds up to $125 for a person. So for people that haven't given in the past, or maybe thought that giving $50 was going to be too much, I encourage them to just take a look at giving $1 a week. That's $2 a paycheck, and adds up to $52 before you know it, and you don't really realize it coming off of your paycheck at the end of the week on Friday.
And of course, it's tax deductible.
And it is tax deductible. I had a gentleman say to me one time, he goes, you know, when I look at my pay stub, I see where all this money goes out. And he says, and my FICA goes out, and all these other Social Security, all this stuff goes out. And he says, and I really don't know where that money went, and I really don't know what good it's done. But when I look at my United Way contribution coming out each paycheck, I know where it goes, because it's right here in my community, and I see it every day.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, geez, why didn't I come up with that? Because it's really a good way to really say, hey, I know where this goes, because it's here.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we've touched on a few of the programs, but there was one that you had provided to me that is called Imagination Library, an early learning initiative. Talk to us a little bit about that.
We're part of a group called, the United Way is part of a group called ELCO. And ELCO stands for the Early Learning Collaboration Council of Oshkosh. And we were the group that kind of came together and started looking at the whole issue of 4-year-old kindergarten, and was that right for the Oshkosh community? And one of the things that I learned, because I'm not an educator, one of the things that I learned is how important it is for children to be read to at an early age. And not just an early age, but like birth. So we looked at how could United Way contribute to this whole early learning collaboration between the child care centers, between the library, between the school district, and what could United Way bring to the table? And we found this program called the Imagination Library. And it's actually a program that Dolly Parton founded, and it comes from Dollywood, the foundation that she has. And Dolly felt that it was important for every kid in Tennessee to be able to read at grade level by the time they got to school. And not wait for it to happen at school, but be ready when they got to school. And what she was finding is that so many kids didn't know how to read, had poor relationships with their parents because parents and children didn't read together or they didn't spend time together, that she wanted to do something, and so she started this program. The program basically is that we will have, when the child signs up, the family signs up, they will receive a book a month, one book each month, until they turn 5. So if they start at age 4, they'll only get them for a year, but if they start when they're born, they'll get them for those 5 years. So they get a book a month, and we only have 2 rules for the parents. We say sit down and read the book to the child as often as they want it, and when you move, let us know, because we can't forward the books. And some parents aren't doing so well on the second one because we're having to get a lot of returned books, but that's okay too, because we have a plan for that. So we deliver, the books come directly to the child in the child's name in a plastic wrapper, so they see the book when it comes to their home, and they get 1 a month. And what's so cool about the program is that parents who maybe wouldn't necessarily have the time to be able to take the child or the children to the library can have that book each month and read with them. And we have such great stories from people that are, they're saying that this is my child's favorite book. They'll tell us about, I didn't know that reading to my baby was important. And I was a little disappointed. The baby books aren't in color. They're more like black and white and really hard and stuff. But babies need to learn, I guess, perspective and those kinds of things. So, but it's just the sound of the parent's voice. It's being held with the parent that builds that bond and starts to develop that brain. And so the more words kids have in their vocabulary by the time they get to school, the more successful they can be. There's all this brain research that goes behind it. And actually in 2010, we will be having a statewide early learning summit here in Oshkosh.
Really? Okay.
Yes, and we're really excited about that. The Elko group is pulling that together as well. So it was our commitment to children in Oshkosh. People think that you start to look at kids by the time they're juniors and seniors, and see, well, where should we be directing them so that they're good employees in our community? But it's too late by then. They need to have those early learning skills and that passion for reading, so that everything else falls into place for them. So that we're not waiting till they're juniors and seniors to say, "Oh, why did we make a mistake here? What's wrong?" We catch the mistakes early on, and those kids, and it doesn't have to be poor children, although many times it is. But those children have the same advantages of every child in our community. And that's really what our mission is for that program.
Well, that sounds like a great program.
Doesn't come cheap, though.
No, I'm sure it doesn't.
It has been extremely popular, and it was up over 1,000 children right within the first couple of months of rolling it out last year.
Wow.
We're over 1,500 children, and right now there's a waiting list. We're sorry about that, but until we can get more funding for it.
Sure. Sean, you said you started out volunteering several years ago and so forth. Now you've got Day of Caring volunteer opportunities. Can you folks talk to us about that?
Sure.
Do you ever do a Day of Caring?
I haven't done the Day of Caring specifically.
We just got them
That's in
November.
April, but why don't you talk about that?
I think this is going to be our 14th Day of Caring. Maybe it's our 15th Day of Caring. It's basically a half day where we coordinate with our partner agencies and other nonprofits in the community and say, do you have projects that need to get done? And then we pair volunteers who sign up, register for the program, and we pair them into those different work sites. And we do everything from raking people's lawns. We've done work at the Christine Ann Center where we've washed windows, we've raked lawns, we've done other kinds of gardening. We've had students paint the wall at the Hooper Building with our new logo. We've had Dick Campbell, one of my favorite volunteers, go out in the community and read to children at the Y Child Care Center. We've had people go out to the Y's camp and lay yards and yards and yards of mulch at the camp at Winnebago, just a number of things. And most of our agencies, Cerebral Palsy, Boys and Girls Club, they all participate by giving us the projects. We recruit the volunteers, place them in for a half day. First we feed them, and then we send them out, and they learn about the agency. They learn, what that agency is about, and then they actually tackle a project. And by the time we're done, we usually complete about 40 projects.
Wow.
In one half day.
And so they may be raking leaves for elderly, senior citizens, folks who have disability issues.
Yep. AdvoCap's one of our great partners in this too, because they give us all these projects, and usually they're senior citizens or people with disabilities that can't get out any longer to do that. So they might be washing the windows or raking, or they might be painting stairs. Any of those kinds of things. Nothing really major construction, but things that you can do in a half a day.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a nicely coordinated way for an employer that wants to have a group of employees or a school project or a civic group that wants kind of a somewhat planned and coordinated project at a designated time to go out and do it together.
When does this take place?
We usually try to take it around the Easter vacation so that we can get children involved as
Okay.
well, so that moms and dads and their kids can get involved. It's going to be the Friday after Easter. Yeah, the Friday
Okay.
after. And
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know that date off the top of my head.
I don't either. But Friday after Easter.
Yep, that's spring break for the kids, and so then we've been getting a lot more teens. John Neiman from Aurora Healthcare is our coordinator for this, our chair of this event, and he's all about getting kids involved in volunteering, and actually there's a Make a Difference Day coming up pretty soon. So he's all about that kind of work. So we've been getting more teens and more young adults.
Okay. Well, and that's several months away yet, and yet the time really flies, But I'd like to have you folks back on.
Oh, we'd love to.
Just prior to that, so that we can publicize that event for you.
That'd be great.
So, okay, we're down to like a minute and a half here. So, in our remaining time, it's not much. I know. I'm sorry.
No, but I do this too,
but-
and I know.
it just flies, What in our remaining minute or so would you like people to know about United Way and what your organization does?
Yeah, the social services that are provided by United Way and United Way funded agencies are really the fabric of Oshkosh, and this is, from my perspective, this is what living in Oshkosh is all about. This is the root of the low crime rates that we have, the healthy residents that we have, the well-educated children that we have. Without these services in place, we're not going to necessarily have those other benefits and those other amenities in the community. So it's really a price to pay for living in a community as exciting and as progressive as Oshkosh. It's a small price to pay, but if you can afford to give a $125 pledge over the course of a year, again, that's $5 every 2 weeks on your payroll. It helps make the community what it is.
Okay.
And if you can't give that much, even as Sean said, $1 a week or 50 cents a week, all those 50 cents a week, when you put them together, can get us to $1,310,000.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you both for being
Thank you.
here, and best of luck on reaching your goal here. And again, it's if you want to go to their website, it's www.oshkoshunitedway.org. You can go there to. They can make donations online?
They can't just yet.
They can't. You can't yet, but go there and find out how you can make a donation. And if you want to volunteer as well, you'll find all the information there. Give them a call. So, thank you both for being here.
Cheryl.
Thanks a
Appreciate
lot.
it very
That's
much.
great.
And that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.